About America's relationship with Japan. The United States and the opening to Japan, 1853. If you didn't know, on July 8th, 1853, American Commodore Matthew Perry led his 4 ships into the harbor at Tokyo Bay, seeking to reestablish for the first time in over 200 years regular trade and discourse between Japan and the Western world. 1853 context. America is now starting to rise up in the world, becoming a superpower. We didn't fully control the world until after World War II, which I posted in a video. After World War II, America solidified its hold on the world. We were the leader, number one. 1853, we're getting to that point. So Matthew Perry pulls up into Japan. Japan hasn't opened its borders for 200 years. So for the past 200 years, so 1853 minus 200, 1600s. So since the 1600s, Japan hasn't allowed trade with Westerners. They had, I think they had like the Dutch or the Portuguese there, but they didn't like the West because of the Christian people would come to Japan and they would try to Christianize the Japanese people, and the shogun didn't like that. So eventually he got tired of this Christian influence and he banned everybody from coming to Japan. He only allowed like the Portuguese because they weren't interested in Christian missionary work. They just wanted money and trade. So 200 years goes by, and if you close yourself off to the world, what happens? No innovations, no evolution. You don't get better. You don't learn about what's new. So Japan was still operating in the past. So in 1853, Japan didn't understand, oh, ships are different now. They're bigger. They're stronger. You know, they got bigger weapons, more advanced weapons. Japan had stopped dealing with the outside world for 200 years, so they stayed suspended in time. They never upgraded. So these 4 American gunboats come in, open up and trade with us, meaning allow us to sell you our stuff and you sell us your stuff, or we're going to attack you and take over Japan. That's what happened in 1853. Fast forward to World War II. Japan, they thought of themselves as the supreme Asian. They thought that the Japanese man was the supreme Asian and was better than the other Asians. Look up the history of Japan and Korea. Japan and China. Japan is the number 1 most hated Asian in Asia because they've always had this attitude of we're the supreme Asian. Therefore, we should take over every other Asian. So in World War II, they tried to do that. They bombed Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. They wanted to have a foothold in that part of the world so that they could have access to, you know, some of those islands and stuff like that, right? In that part of the world, they wanted to attack Hawaii, take over Hawaii, and then establish that as like a base so that they can, you know, have access to that part of the world. But their goal was Japanese supremacy. And they looked at their emperor as a god. He was God. That's why when America dropped those 2 atomic bombs, Japan was not going to give up. They were going to fight. They were going to get their children to fight. They were going to fight to the death because they viewed their emperor as a god. He was God. And the only way that those people in Japan surrendered after those bombs was when America confronted the emperor and said, tell your people that you're not God. Tell them that you're a normal man. And he did that, and the people were shocked because ever since Japan was created, they looked at their emperor as God. And they looked at themselves as holy people, the supreme Asian. Yeah, they thought they were the chosen man, the supreme being in the world. So that's why they were so hard. They didn't want to give up. And they had this tradition where they would rather kill themselves than surrender. You know, the whole thing with the knife and they stick it in their stomach. So fast forward, after we get the emperor to say he's not God, we allow him to stay. Everybody else that was in the military, that was running to Japanese military, they got convicted of war crimes and stuff like that. But the emperor, in order to create peace and harmony, we allowed him to stay, and he stayed emperor until like the 80s. So he was emperor from that point for 40 more years. And we became friends with him, and Japan became one of our best friends. However, after World War II, one of the things that Japan had to follow was you're not allowed to have a military anymore. You only can have a home defense army. Until this day, Japan does not have a real military. Because militaries, they go all over the world and they train. Japan is not allowed to do that. They're only allowed to have a home defense army. So if somebody invades, they can fight back. But since they were so reckless with their military when they had one, and they tried to dominate the world and become the supreme Asian and take over places, and they bombed Pearl Harbor, and even because America and Japan had a good relationship when they bombed Pearl Harbor. It came out of nowhere. We were friends with them. So for them to come bomb us with no warning, or they were reckless. They were a reckless military, so they got their military banned. And Japan was supposed to be where China is today. America was grooming Japan to be where China is, but it didn't work. So that's a little history of Japan. Very interesting little island. Very proud people. They've got some mistakes in their past. They've had some, they were arrogant in their past, and it's affected them. But, one thing about it, we had a very tumultuous relationship with Japan, but they're one of our strongest friends right now in this current day. So that's a lesson. Peace.